Hi there, it's Beauty Junkie. Welcome to my channel. Today we're getting into the new Wayne Goss luxury eye palette right here. I have a new one of his eyeliners and we're gonna get into swatches, comparisons. I'm gonna try an eye look for you. I'm very excited. I think there's a lot of conversations about this palette, so I'm excited to get into it. I do have another video. I have a whole Beautylish sort of mini haul where I picked up a few other items, but this video is supposed to get more into detail. We're doing a full look with the new palette. So let's get into it. So I'm going to be swatching shades for you. I'm going to be describing the palette. So 6 shades, y'all noticed that. I know, like, when I first saw this, I wasn't like super excited because the shades are not like groundbreaking, right? But they look pretty, like they look nice. I like the compact. I mean, talk about packaging. It's a packaging that gets dirty, right? Fingerprints. But it's nice and small. This is perfect for travel. 16.2 grams, 0.57 ounces altogether. Lasts 24 months. The 1, 2, 4 are satin. Shade number 3, black, is matte. Shade number 5 is matte. And shade number 6 is celestial. So 3 textures in here. I think there's a lot of comments on the expense of this palette. It's $55. You're right, it's expensive for 6 shades. But, I mean, I've seen people do like price per ounce or price per gram. And I don't really think that's a fair comparison because it depends what you prefer. If you like to have tons of shades but little product for the same amount of product as you get in here. So if you get a total of 16 ounces, but if this is split 50 different ways, for those of you that like to use up your shadows and hit pan, having 50 shades and you hit pan on them very quickly, that's not going to work for you. So these, while there's not as many shades, they're going to last you a lot longer. And if you watch Wayne's video, which I really suggest that you do, I think it provides a lot of context as to where Wayne is coming from. And it makes you understand the vision behind this palette, and when you know the vision from the artist, it makes a lot more sense. So his vision is that you have these wide pans that you don't get a nice giant well in the middle because the pan's so small. So it's designed for use in mind, but you know, for the average like beauty enthusiast that watches YouTube, how often do we actually hit pan on eyeshadows? You know, we're trying a lot of different eyeshadows. So I think from the regular YouTube watcher of beauty channels, that doesn't impress us, right? But I don't think this concept is a bad idea. I think it's good to have a large pans of neutrals that you're going to use all the time. You just have to determine, are you going to use these shades yourself all the time? And unfortunately, because this is only at Beautylish, you can't, you know, really see this in person, unfortunately, to like determine, yeah, like I would use these shades. So that's why we have videos. You guys, if you have like a similar skin tone to me, then maybe you can figure out, yeah, I like the shades. But you know, I don't know that like doing price comparisons per gram or ounce or whatever totally makes sense. I think the whole point of doing that is to say Wayne's palette is the most expensive program, and it probably is. But once you get past that, let's really evaluate for what it is. I mean, I think they're even saying like Pat McGrath is less costly than this for what you get, and I think that is true. So, but Wayne always complains that what you get and you don't get enough product in Pat's palettes. So, I mean, Wayne is preaching and in putting into his products what he's always been preaching, that there's never enough product. So he's putting a lot of product in here. That's where, like, if you don't watch Wayne, you won't get it. So that's that. I really suggest, again, watch the video if you don't know where Wayne is coming from and you don't understand the point of this palette. He really explains it really well. It's a short video. Won't take. Another thing before I get into like comparisons and swatches, I wanted to do like a full kind of 90s face with contour, neutral lip, really simple and back to basics. So I used the contour palette from Scott Bourne's on my cheeks today. I also used a new blush from Jill Stewart. This isn't exactly a 90s color because it's very pink, but this is Baby Lilac. And then I just did my brows like normal. I really focused more on a matte complexion. I did a little bit of highlighter because that was the thing. Contour was a thing, but it wasn't like widely used among common folk. Like makeup artists did that technique, but other people weren't really doing it yet back in the 90s. And I want to focus on that aesthetic because Wayne sort of references it with this palette, and that you could really create the smoky eyes of the 90s with this. So that's kind of where I'm going. I wanted to pull out a couple references for you so you guys have an idea of like smoky eyes, 90s, what are we talking about. Pulling out Kevin Aquan's Making Faces book. This is a giant book full of amazing tutorials and pictures. I looked at the copyright dates from 1997. I think I got this in the early 2000s. I think he already passed away by the time I got this, or soon after I got this. But I pulled a page out on his kind of like eye explanation on eye makeup, and he talks about different textures, different types of eyeshadow, and he talks about contouring the eye, different brushes you can use. And when I look at this picture of Julia Roberts, I think, yes, this is typical smoky and the plain sort of neutral toned face, neutral lips. You don't have highlight, you don't have blush. I don't really see that much contour on your face like you do today, maybe a little on the nose. But really the contour is focused on the eye, and I think with the Wayne's incorporation of black, that's kind of where he was going, that sort of aesthetic, so you guys get a picture of what he's talking about. Otherwise, you guys may not know the reference. But if you guys are curious like about this book, this is like from Kevin Aquan. He's a makeup artist that became super famous to lots of celebrities and models and supermodels, and did tons of photo shoots. Eventually he passed away, and then after he died, his makeup line was started, and it still continues today. I think what's really evident, like, he has his techniques, but then he like makes over people in this book, and then he has sort of like the really fun costumey looks. But I think when you look at like some of these just normal everyday folk, he's not using a ton of color like we see today, and I think it's really just pretty makeup. Like this, it's just very nice, natural, pretty. I mean, it's a little smoky there, but the focus is just on enhancing your features, and I think that's also where Wayne is going. I have all his other books as well, and they're really like great frames of reference for people that want to become artists. I know it's kind of old school to look at a book, but these are the different like eye techniques, or eye and lip. So light eye and lip, light eye, dark lip, dark eye, dark lip, and then dark eye, light lip. Like this is all stuff that we know and are familiar with today, But did you know this, 20 years ago? I don't know. As well, the art of makeup and face forward. Guys, if you didn't know the kind of 90s reference he was talking about, that's it. Not that I know him personally, but I mean, that's what I think of when I think 90s smoky eye. So we're gonna get into swatches of the palette first, and then I'm gonna try to quickly go through all the comparisons I could find in my collection. This was a bit tricky to find really good matches for this. So we're gonna go in shade 1 first. And this is like, not gonna show up a lot on camera, but it's got this golden glow to it. You can see that there. This is gonna be a really pretty kind of highlighting shade. Shade 2 is our next satin. Just a nice warm satin neutral shade there. Next we have our matte black. And I will tell you the matte black feels like, a matte. It's not super buttery, it just feels it feels smooth, it feels a little bit dry, but it feels nice. Like it's not buttery, but it's not overly dry. And the satins are very smooth too. Shade 4. This is kind of like an orangey sort of terracotta. And number 5, our last matte shade. You can see that there. Still pretty warm toned, but no shimmer to that one. It is our glittery celestial shade, and it definitely feels textured in the pan. And this I would call like a glitter topper, and it really reminds me a lot of Pat McGrath, except it has a little bit of color behind it, but very similar to the Pat McGrath sort of aesthetic. Also, what reminds me of the Pat McGrath aesthetic is having a black. Pat's first 3 palettes came with a black. After that, the rest of them didn't include a black, but Wayne Goss says in his video that each palette that he puts out is gonna have a matte black shade in it. And that's like, as I said, to deepen up the other shades for people with darker skin tones, to smoke up the eye, to have an eyeliner. It's always for a lot of uses, and he says he doesn't want you to reach for another palette to get the black, and he likes having every palette have that shade in it because he finds it to be so useful. I don't know how many of you, use black eyeshadow regularly. I think if you're a makeup artist that you do, but I think a lot of us use eyeliners, pencil, liquid, whatever. But I think if you're going for a natural look, like an eyeliner, like a little bit of eyeliner smudged at the root, a little bit of black eyeshadow smudged at the root looks really natural and really defines your eye in a soft way. So this is for not only neutral, I think natural makeup. It's the kind of look that he's going with here. So that is the palette. Now a lot of you, just first impressions, you're like, oh, this is so boring. Well, why do we keep buying neutral palettes if they're so boring? What is good about this palette that makes it stand out? And that's what we're gonna get into with application. I think the tones are fine. Are they gonna go with my skin tone the best? I'm not sure. I like warm shades, but sometimes they can not look so great on me, so we'll see. But we are gonna get into comparisons. So I'm gonna start with the lightest shade first. And I tried out a couple of options beforehand, and I came up with a couple that I think are the closest. Now, as I said, I don't have like tons of references to show you, but I will show you a couple from Pat McGrath. This is the Mothership 1 palette, and I'm gonna go with the lightest shade here, and we're gonna compare this somehow to this guy here. All right. Can you guys see that? Probably not. So that's the Pat McGrath up at the top by my watch. And then that's Wayne's. So you can see the tone's a little bit different. This is a little lighter, this is a little more golden. But I think it's not too far off. The next one I have to show you is, this is from the Divine Rose 1 palette. And we're going into the lightest sort of golden shade here. I thought this was also a pretty close copy. This one's probably a little bit closer. So it's the shade farthest from my watch. So you can see Wayne has like a little more of that golden hue, where Pat's is a bit brighter, but again not too far off. And then the last one I have to show you is from a beat up Kevyn Aucoin palette. This is the Contour Book Volume 2, and the shade I found to be close because it's not super shimmery is actually a highlight shade, and this is Candlelight Powder. And I had a single of this highlighter, but I used it all up, and he still sells this highlighter. It's not like blinding, it's like an old school highlighter, so more like shiny pretty, not shiny blinding. But this guy I think is probably the closest in terms of hue. Sorry, I'm gonna do things again on this side. Oh boy, I'm so dang pale. This is not working out well. Okay, this is Wayne Goss. This is the Kevyn Aucoin. You can't even see it. I'm so sorry. I know you can't see this like super well, but I'd say it's like in between the Pats and Kevyn Aucoin. I know you guys can't really see that, so I apologize, but that's the closest I could see. I think people are kind of familiar with Kevyn Aucoin for his contour and highlight powder. They've been around for a while now. So let's get into the other shade comparisons that hopefully you'll be able to see a little bit easier. Let's just go in with black straight away. I mean, as long as it's like a true black and a not gray, can't really complain about black. So this one, I think Wayne Goss's is a true black, but I also have to compare Anastasia Beverly Hills, and this is Noir. And this one feels pretty dry, but not as a good swatch, but I think it's still pretty black. And then trying Pat McGrath, I think her formula looks a little closer to Wayne's just from the swatches, a little more pigmented. That's all the black I have to compare. But Wayne's is smooth, but I think Pat's is smoother. But let's get into shade number 2. This is kind of this brown satin shade, and it's this guy right here. So I'm gonna do this on this side. So you can see sort of that warm satin shade there. And then as far as like what I have to compare, I think a close comparison that I could find is from Makeup Geek Homecoming. I'm not even sure the shade is still sold, if it's relevant. Somewhat similar, not quite. Guys, I tried a lot of shades and I could not find something exactly the same, but I'm sure you guys can. I have the Dominique Cosmetics Latte palette, and I tried Creme Brulee, and I think this one is pretty close. But it's super shimmery, right? It's a lot more shine to it, but the tone I think is there. And I think that's it for that shade. As far as like close dupes, that's what I could find. So even though you have a lot of neutrals, if you don't love them, I think it's good to try a palette like this. Maybe you'll like them, maybe you'll like the tones. It's a different set of shades probably than what you already have. It's pretty hard to find neutrals that match, in my opinion, but I don't know, maybe you guys know some really good dupes if you guys already own the palette. Alright, let's get into this kind of terracotta warm shade here. This is number 4. Back over here. So you're not seeing like blinding satin, it's just a normal satin there. And I pulled out the Pat McGrath, I believe this is number 2, Mothership 2. And this shade right here I think is pretty close. That's actually the closest that I could find, and I think it's a pretty darn good match. I'm not sure it's worth, I mean, this palette's $125 versus Wayne's $55, but those shades are pretty close. I think Pat's a little more shimmery than satin, or it's a more shimmery satin, and Wayne's is a true satin. Now as far as like getting into like matching the matte, as far as getting into matching number 5, this one was a little bit difficult for me to find a really close match, but I think I found a couple. And I'm sorry that I don't have like more common frames of reference. So this is the Wayne Goss, and I think my closest matches are from the Sydney Grace Summer Days palette. This guy right here, which is new. And I think Sandcastle and Break of Day were pretty close. So we're gonna swatch these two. And I think, you know, they're not exact, but I think the tone may be there. Kind of. It's a little bit different. And then Break of Day. That's probably the closer match, Break of Day, to this guy. But again, not perfect, not really a match. But I went through like all my Pat McGraths and I went through all the browns and I'm like, nope, 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 these don't really go. So that was my research on comparisons. Now the easiest comparison I have was really the Celestial shade, and I think I found a pretty good one in the Mothership, and sorry, the Divine Rose 2 palette. The glitter topper in this one I think is the closest. So we're gonna swatch Wayne again. Use my hand this time. So really pretty, right? If you look up close, there's a little bit of mix of gold and silver. And then when you take Pat's from the Divine Rose 1, it's pretty close, right? I think Pat's has a lot of silver in there. but pretty close formula. So I know he calls this like a celestial shade, but I say it's a good topper shade, and I would think of it as a topper. You know, there's a lot of glitter. It's gonna give you a good pop. So yeah, I think those are like good sort of comparisons for you guys. I wish I had more popular colors to compare to, but I don't. Well, I've always loved makeup. I'm not a huge collector, and I don't have a lot of popular brand stuff. So unfortunately I don't have that frame of reference. Let's try the eyeliner real quick. This is Precious Opal, and the colors are at the bottom. And I got this one because it was different than the other two. The other two look very similar to black. I think one's black and one's like dark brown, but it looks black. But this looks like a dark brown to me, and when you buff it out, sorry, I'm gonna use the other hand because there's no glitter on it, but when I swatched this last night, you can sort of see there's some glitter. Not really, just a slight amount of like gold shimmer. And you guys are gonna think I'm absolutely nuts, but you can't see it on camera. But there is gold, just barely some gold when you sort of blend it out. I'm not really sure you can even see that on your eye. Maybe you can see a little bit of twinkle of gold in there, but it's really subtle. Just a pretty dark brown. This is a kohl eye pencil, so it is gonna smudge. It's intended to smudge. So we're gonna try all of this out. So excited. We're gonna start with the lightest shade right here, number 1. And I will try my best to use Wayne Goss's eye brushes that I own. I think I may need help with a couple from other brands. But these are the eye brushes that I have from Wayne Goss. I have the number 19, the 20, this is number 4. So this is gonna be a perfect brush. This is number 8 for the black eyeshadow and smudging into that upper lash line. I do want to use the eyeliner pencil as well, so we'll see how that goes. But as far as like packing on shadow, I only really have like the blender kind of brushes. So I think I'm gonna use a different brush to sort of pack things on. And I'm gonna go with the Sonia G Worker Pro. And we're gonna go into shade number 1. I'm gonna go ahead and use the same, do the same look on each eye. So right away I can tell that these are the kind of shades that you build up. So you don't have to be afraid when you go in that you're like put too much. You definitely are gonna layer to get the amount of pigment that you desire. So this is gonna be very user and beginner friendly. Like you can't make too many mistakes just by, you know, putting your brush on your face for the first time. You have a little leeway here. So you can see I have a little bit of glow there. I'm gonna go ahead and put this on my brow bone. And this is gonna be a nice reflective shade on me that's not gonna be too overwhelming. This is a very natural, neutral look. I'm gonna go in with the matte brown shade, number 5. And we're gonna go into the crease. And I'm using the number 4 brush. I will say my first introduction to Wayne Goss was on YouTube years and years ago, before I really started watching YouTube. I was going to a Halloween party. I was in college, and I wanted to make my makeup look like Marilyn Monroe because I was gonna be the Diamonds Are Best Friend pink outfit. I think that's the right movie. Where she's in this like pink long dress, she's got gloves on, and she's got her hair all done. And I wanted to do like the quintessential Marilyn Monroe makeup with the eyes and everything. And I looked up like, how do I do Marilyn Monroe on YouTube? And I think this was like 2008 or something, 9, maybe 2010. Oh, I don't even remember. Maybe it was before that. And first, I just want to say this is applying really easily, and I really like the tone of it. I don't always love warm tones, but this one looks nice on me, I think. Anyways, I looked up Marilyn Monroe, and his YouTube video came up, and I think I got some good tips from him. Anyways, I think it had to be him back then. Because later, years later, when I really got into watching YouTube, only like a few years ago, I saw him again. I remember his name, but I didn't recognize him because he lost so much weight from the time I've saw him before. And if you see his old videos, he was quite a bit heavier, and I like barely recognize him. Like, his face is just a lot thinner now. So that's what I remember like about Wayne Goss. And then like when I got into YouTube and started like looking up what brushes to get, his name kept coming up. So I decided to pick some up. So not only do I have his eye brushes, but I have a couple. I have 3 face brushes that are just super soft that I use all the time. I have number 10, I think this is the airbrush. I have number 13 as well. I like his brushes. I think they're really good. Number 4 is particularly soft, but this is like a breeze to tuck into the crease. I know some of you are gonna want like a deeper shade to tuck into the crease and like kind of define the outer portion of the eye, but that's where we can play with a little bit of black to deepen things up like he suggested. But before we do that, I do want to play with this terracotta shade just kind of on the outer part of my eyelid. Just to see what that does. Now I think this is looking a little bit orangey red. Not really red, but just kind of a brick tone. And I don't mind it. I think it's really brightens up my face. I know this isn't like everyone's favorite colors, but I think it's really flattering. Like, it's surprisingly flattering. Let's go. I do want to use like all the colors. So with the sort of medium brown satin shade, number 2, just want to go a little bit over here on the middle to inner portion of my eye, just so you can get a bit of a different tone and sense for what this tone is. I have to say, all of these shades are just so easy breezy. Like, this is I would say, I mean, if it didn't have black, I'd say this is a beginner palette. I think black for beginners is scary because it's, you know, dark, but all the other shades, very beginner friendly. Alright, so I'm going to use the same shade underneath my eye, and I'm going to use a really tiny brush, rougher number 3. I saw a reviewer use a brush from a palette from another brand, and I own the palette, and I thought, why would you use a brush from another palette? Like, I get it if you don't own Wayne Goss brushes, that's totally fine, but I feel like you have better brushes in your collection. You should give this palette a fair shot with some good brushes. But the palette she chose to use a brush from, like, I don't know about you, but the brushes I get in palettes I never use because they're never that good, and I've used the one she used and it was not. It's a flimsy, really thin, not a lot of bristles brush. And I was so surprised that's what she used to apply this palette. I was like, really? Do I necessarily think you need pro brushes with this palette? No. Maybe that was the point she was making, but she didn't make that clear. She didn't say anything about it. But I think, you know, nice brushes always help with blending, application. Things move faster, things are easier. So I would say this is like an everyday palette, kind of like even way more everyday than, say, the Natasha Denona Mini Nude. Like, this is a nude palette, but the sparkles, like, I can't use this because I get so much glitter and fallout, and even this one's really sparkly. Like, this could be everyday, but it's a little too much shimmer. This is just the right amount of shimmer in this block here. Now with the Celestial shade, I wouldn't really use that for work because it's so glittery, but if I wanted to go out at night and kick it up a notch, I would use more of this and more of the black. But really you could stop here with just using these 4 shades. I mean, this is really an everyday look. It enhances the eyes, it draws attention to the eyes without you necessarily are gonna focus on my eye. I'm gonna go back in a little bit more with the terracotta shade, just because I like it so much. And I'm gonna swirl a little more of the matte shade into the crease. So you can see I'm layering where I feel like I want to layer and build things up. All right, I think that looks pretty. I mean, a lot of you aren't gonna be super impressed or thrilled about it, but I think it's a really pretty palette, and I know I'm gonna get a lot of use out of this. Like, I know I have a lot of shades, but I have a lot of single shades, or I have a lot of neutral shades in a bunch of different palettes. I don't have anything put together like I'm sure some of you do. You have a bunch of warm tone quads that are similar to this, you know, great, you don't need it. But if you don't, this is an option. So I want to do some eyeliner underneath my eye, maybe in the waterline, and then do maybe some smudging on the upper lash line of the black. But we're going in a waterline here. You don't want to be afraid to do a little bit of smudging, because this is a kohl eyeliner. But if you have trouble with eyeliners moving around on you, kohl isn't gonna be your friend, just because they're not as like permanent, but they give you a wonderful like smudged, smoky effect real quickly, which can kind of take your look up a notch. So we have the lash line, the water lines on the bottom with the brown. So I'm gonna take a little tiny brush from Wayne Goss, which is number 8, and we're gonna go into the black, and we're gonna go on the top lash line. think this is the most natural way to do an eyeliner. I don't think it's the quickest, but this brush is perfect for it. Like, I can't find another brush out there that's as tiny and perfect as this one for doing this exact thing with powder and just applying it to a really specific spot. I mean, you can see like I defined my eye without losing any lid space really. And it's soft, it's not as harsh. Like, to me, this is like going back to the 90s. Because you could definitely like smoke that out even a little bit and have even like no harsh lines at all. I mean, there you have it. That one didn't take as long. I mean, that's nice, right? You could stop like right here, put on some mascara, lashes, call it a day. But I do want to use this Sparkle Celestial shade, and I'm going to use my finger just to sort of tap things on. Hopefully I can block some fallout from happening. I mean, how pretty is that? I could use a glitter glue, but I don't want to disturb the eyeshadow underneath. You can definitely wet it to make it even more sparkly, but I think this gives a nice amount of shine and it goes with the aesthetic of the palette. It's not over the top, it just gives a little bit of sparkle. If you guys need like a quick way to block fallout, as long as your concealer and foundation are set, just put a tissue underneath your eyeball. Some nice, pretty sparkles. I'm happy with this palette. I really, really am. So we're gonna, I'm gonna put on some mascara, but I do want to try smoking things up with the black and seeing how that goes. All right, so that's our look without tons of smoking, just a little bit of, you know, smolder with the eyeliner. I think if I could go back in time and take my senior portrait from high school again, I think these are the colors I needed to use on my eyes. I did like a brown smoky look with eyeliner, and I thought it would be like a classic eyeshadow, but it was way too dark, especially with my skin tone. A lot of dark brown eyeshadow can be too much and just way too much focus on my eyes. I think, you know, sans maybe the bottom waterline, if I took that out and just did the upper lash line eyeliner with the powder, this would be a great like senior photo. Maybe not the glitter, this is just a really classic look is what I'm trying to say, that I wish I would have done with that photo. Just a little bit more of a fresh face. So I'm going to put a little bit of lip gloss from Pat McGrath. This is the Faux Real Less Gloss. I wanted to get a lipstick and lip gloss from Wayne Goss when I ordered this palette along with my other stuff. But the lipstick I wanted, Lily, was out, and I think the lip gloss I wanted, Hyacinth or something like that. Can't think of the word right now. But I think the ones I was interested were sold out, so I didn't pick up any. I didn't buy any of like I like this palette. I'm glad I got it. I have to say, like, after putting it on for the first time, I think it's really nice. It's gonna be perfect for me for travel. You know, do I wish there was like a more fun shade color in there? Sure, but that's probably his next round of palettes. You know, let's just wait and see before we decide not to buy anything. ever again. You know, as far as the lipstick launch, the pencils and the lip gloss, I was curious. I looked at it when it came out and I was like, I could see myself using some of these, but I already have a lot of new lip glosses right now, so I was like, I'll buy eventually. And then when it came time to buying stuff from Beautylish, things that I wanted were gone. But I think the shades were not like, oh, I have to have because they're so wearable and things, I have things similar, or they weren't rich enough for me. Like, I don't love neutrals on me. I like something a little more exciting on my lips, so that's why I didn't get it. But I think as like a base launch, like this is the first launch, I think neutrals make sense. They appeal to a lot of people, but also they're going to be the baseline to get his collection where you just build upon it. So you're going to use this with along with another palette, you know what I mean? So just think of it like that. But I'm sure a lot of you are gonna say, you know, I have these colors, I don't need it. Sure. We'll see what he comes out with next. Hopefully you guys like those colors better. But I think these are really pretty and flattering, and I can't complain. Okay, my lighting is kind of disappearing. I'm gonna take a couple of photos and then we're gonna do the black just to see what smoking it up looks like. Alright, we're gonna quickly jump into black. Just to get a different side of things. Just gonna go real slow. If you want the ultimate control, you're just going to use a little bit of black and a small brush. I'm using the number 19 Wayne Goss. And if you don't want like to close up your eye, don't take it too far in. So I think that's good for me as far as like making it a little more dramatic and really utilizing the black. Like you can see how easy you can transform any of these shadows, and really like placing it on the outside like this. This just became like a night look. If you really wanted to make this a daytime look, I wouldn't line the under. I would either use the black powder or use just the pencil on the upper line. But some people don't like their no liner. I rarely do it personally, just because my eyes are a little bit watery. But also I think if you want to like really glam it up, you could really layer up the glitter, or you know, get your finger wet and then go in with the glitter. It's really pretty. I love that you get a lot of product in here, even though it's a small palette. It's compact, travel friendly. I like the eyeliner. I think I went through it I did a lot of swatching, but I kind of went through it pretty fast. So I think you may have to sharpen it more than you want to, but it's like a classic wood, looks like a real pencil. You're gonna need a sharpener. But thoughts overall, I think this is an excellent palette. Yes, the shades are boring, but boring is good. I mean, I think for those of us that have a huge collection of neutrals that we're happy with, you don't need, this isn't gonna like change your mind on like life and what to do with it. But I think this is a good first palette for Wayne. I think the quality is there. I think these are really easy to apply, really smooth. I mean, I think people are just a little upset with the price. But I mean, Wayne's stuff isn't like it was never like cheap, and it's definitely a little higher than mid-range, especially when you look at his brushes. Some of them are priced okay, but some of them are expensive. I think his lip products, when they came out, I think people thought, oh, this is going to be a reasonably priced makeup line because his lip stuff wasn't that expensive. And if you think about the eyeliners, like $14 isn't bad for like a nicer eyeliner. You know, do I think it's like the highest quality eyeliner I've ever tried? Is it the best eyeliner I've ever tried? No, but it's really pigmented and it's really smooth. You know, and I think people are just bored by his color choices with his makeup so far. But I think once we get into the following stuff he comes out with, I think people will be more excited. That's just my prediction. And then when they start picking up, you know, like his new palettes with all the colors or whatever, more interesting shades that they like, they're going to be like, oh, his formula's really good. I'm actually going to go back and pick up the neutral one that I didn't want to get. I think that, I predict that that will happen. The people will find the second round of stuff coming out better and they'll like it and they'll buy it, but then they'll go back and buy his first round of stuff. So I think unfortunately you kind of have to appeal to the people that have tons of makeup and come out with something different to win them over, and then they'll buy your more basic stuff. Unfortunately, I think that's kind of how it works. But it's so hard to impress people these days. But I think this is excellent quality. I recommend it. I think the shades are soft. I think people are gonna like them. Will a lot of people that are really into makeup and really high shine, high impact makeup be impressed by this? Probably not. I think they'll agree that it's a nice formula and it's easy to apply, but they're gonna be like, nah. But I think it's worth getting, personally. But I mean, nowadays money is so different for people, and I mean, we're all in a different economic situation, probably, a lot of us, that have to really second guess our beauty buying choices. So I don't know, it's just bad timing with this, probably, the amount of money it's going for. I hope Wayne does well. I hope it succeeds. It's just, with the economy going the way it is, it's going to be harder for makeup lines to make money, and I think that's why we're not seeing as many releases right now, which sucks. But you know, I get it, people aren't buying as much stuff, but I'm also like thankful for not as many releases. I like less choices because it's less overwhelming. Things come out, I think, hopefully more at a steady pace like they used to back in the day, but I don't know. Hopefully the power of the beauty industry remains as high as it is for as long as it has been. Okay, I think that's it. First impressions are great. I'm going to keep using this palette. I think this is an everyday staple. I mean, if you don't like neutral eyeshadows, I mean, I think that you can incorporate neutral in any colorful eye look. Warm colors go with a lot of different crazy eye looks, and this palette is full of warm colors. So yeah. Alright guys, that's it for me. Sorry I was so chatty. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have any thoughts about this palette, comment below. Please click like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.